Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone on to today's event on incentivizing, aligning and retaining key employees. So my name is Carl Taylor, and also on the panel this afternoon, we've got Gerry Surtees, who's a chartered tax advisor here at Oldfield. In today's event, we're going to be covering off on three of the most powerful ways to incentivize and retain employees. We all know that as a business grows, you can't do it on your own. A sustainable and healthy and profitable growing business really relies on having a team, a focused team, all driving in the same direction. So we're now going to unpack the three most powerful methods we've seen to incentivize and retain your key employees. Probably really important to say that these aren't the only methods, but these are three really powerful ways to do it that we've seen are really effective.
Everyone likes to be in the dark, but for your key people, it's even more important that they're not only aware of the company's goals and plans, but also they're involved in creating them, take responsibility for them, and they have the autonomy and scope to deliver on them. You have to take key people into your confidence. You have to entrust them with all information, financial and non-financial, that you'd want them to see. If you were in their shoes, you'd want to be able to see that information, and then you've got to trust them to deliver. And that's kind of the hard bit in a way. You've got to be prepared to take a hands-off approach, not only when things are going well, but also when they're not going well. And we all know that when things get off track, it's tempting to kind of dive back in again and try and get things back on the rails again. But the challenge is that if your team don't know how to recover themselves from a difficult situation, low performance, or something that's gone wrong with a customer, all those kind of things that do go wrong in business from time to time, you'll never be able to trust them to run the company in your absence. And let's face it, there's nothing that kills morale in good people more than a boss who keeps interfering with their area of responsibility. The final point is that it's important to agree a number that's a key measure of success or failure, and we like EBITDA. If you've got a number to manage, it brings that alignment, that clarity, and also accountability as well, in a way that other more subjective measures will never do quite the same. So we advocate EBITDA because it's a clear, measurable number, and it aligns the team, we think, around the most important, highest measure, which is delivering growth in company value. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to achieve, or should be trying to achieve if we're in business. And ultimately, to get sustainable EBITDA growth, you have to get everything right. You've got your sales, your profit margins, your customer service, procurement, innovation, employee engagement.
All strategy is an EBITDA or net profit-based bonus scheme. Once you've shared the key financial information with key employees, then you've got a great opportunity to incentivize them based on the financial metrics that you really care about. And as Gerry has mentioned, for a lot of businesses, that's the EBITDA figure, because that's really what drives business value. And you've got to have a really well-rounded approach to drive and grow EBITDA. You've got to pull everything together to get it right. You've got to including things like pricing, maximizing gross profit, sales growth, profitability, customer service, developing, protecting IP, developing USPs. In simple terms, an EBITDA-based bonus scheme, it's really about setting an annual bonus scheme where key employees get a bonus based on the EBITDA result, and it might scale up significantly as the EBITDA result goes over target. So there's a real incentive to hit the EBITDA goal and exceed it.
Ultimately, you need your employees to be focused on long-term value creation. And we tend to unwittingly kind of condition employees to think short-term with monthly pay packets and quarterly or annual bonus schemes. And as a result, what we tend to find is that long-term thinking is not something that comes naturally to employees. And ultimately, long-term value growth and retention go hand in hand. And by far the most powerful way to safeguard this with your key people is to have a long-term incentive plan, or what we would call an employee share plan. In practice, as we said, how does an employee share plan work? Well, it's about giving your key employees the opportunity to acquire shares or share options. And broadly speaking, they come to the same thing in terms of long-term value for the employee. And to be clear, what we're talking about, so we're kind of moving from the left-hand side on this slide where you own 100% of the company, the controlling shareholders own 100% of the company, to the right-hand side where you've got key employees who own, a small slice of the future growth in value of the company. And to be clear, this is normally only a share of future growth. In other words, current value stays in the hands of the current shareholders. So even so, and I can understand this feeling that some controlling shareholders can see this as a negative thing because it feels like they're giving away some value. But in practice, what we're finding is, as talking to business owners, that we're starting to see this as the best way of not only retaining but also growing value as well. And the concept is that in the end, everyone ends up with a slightly smaller slice of a much bigger pie, to use an analogy. As always, there's lots of different ways of doing this, lots of different ways to structure it. And it's key this is done right so as to effectively incentivize. What we mean by that is that lots of schemes for employees involve just giving employees shares or options. But if they have to work to acquire those, that drives growth and engagement, both in the short term and the longer term as well. So as the slide shows, potentially a better way of doing this is what we would call a staged equity plan, which basically allows employees to increase their equity stake over, say, a 5-year period. If the company's EBITDA growth goals are achieved, then they get that extra tranche of shares vests, and they acquire those. And this is a really powerful way, we think, of driving employee engagement and growth, both in the short term as well as in the long term. Moving to the why, there's a number of advantages of an employee share plan over other forms of incentivization for key employees. First one is a sense of ownership. The part of the ownership, they're responsible for this thing. They're responsible to help drive the growth and the value. The second one, as Carl's already touched on, is alignment. Ultimately, they're wanting to achieve the same thing that you are. It's in their best interest to do so. So they're going to be aligned on the same journey as you. The third thing is really that it's a win-win for you and for them. And by definition, if there's a sizable reward for them at the end of this, by definition, the reward will be even bigger for you. And there's a bit of a chart here just to try and explain what we mean by that. And on the left-hand side, you've got what you might call an average growth curve for a business that hasn't got an employee share plan. And on the right, you've got an effective employee share plan in place, aligned and incentivized key employees. And the idea is that you should be able to achieve faster growth. And at the end of it, the employees have got a chunk of value out of it, but you as the controlling shareholders have got even more. So that's the objective behind all of this. Of course, we can't predict the future. We can't guarantee any outcomes, but we can say that we've seen this happen in practice. The next thing is tax efficiencies. So if a scheme is structured correctly, it can be very tax efficient, both for the employee and for the employer. So that's worth being aware of. The government want to encourage these type of schemes. They see them as a good thing. So there's a number of tax incentives that are quite attractive. And finally, retention. Ultimately, these schemes are always conditional on the employee staying to an exit. So what that means is that if they decide to leave and go and work for the competition or do something else, they have to hand their shares back, and they don't get the upside.
Thank you everyone very much for joining us on today's event, and look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.